In this lesson, we're going to discuss some of the ways to help you identify the classes that may be needed in your applications. When you first start an application, you're going to compile all of the needed functionality and requirements of the program into a document. You'll then move into the design phase, in which you need to come up with how you plan on building the application, and this is where you'll have to identify the classes that'll be needed. Often beginners have a hard time visualizing or even identifying what in their program's description should be classes, so hopefully these tips will lead you in the right direction. The first thing to remember is that the more that you program and the more applications that you build, your ability to spot and identify classes will improve. When starting out, you may find it hard to come up with the needed classes, and you may even not create enough classes, and you might just lump everything into one or two classes when you should have broken it down into more. By not using enough classes, your program can lose cohesiveness, and you might end up with high coupling and several jack-of-all-trades classes instead of very focused classes. Or you may go the other way around, and you might end up creating way too many classes. By creating too many classes, your application could end up being more complex than it needs to be, reducing its performance and making it harder to use and extend upon in the future. So you want to try and strike a good balance of just the right amount of classes, and that too will come with experience. I think now is also a good time to review once more what a class is to help with identifying classes. A class is used to model some type of entity or concept using code. A class can represent a person, a credit card, an animal, food, products, or any number of other objects. So that list of things that I just gave you should give you a clue of what to look for when creating classes. You'll notice that they are all nouns. Many times a class will be a person, place, or thing, and I think by looking for nouns that this is one of the most easiest ways to help with identifying classes when building a new application. For instance, if you are needing to create an application to keep track of tasks for you and your family, such as household chores, what nouns can you identify just from that small description that I gave you of the application? Well, we can identify several nouns from that description which could make good candidates for creating classes from. We have a task, we have you and your family, and we have the chores as well. By coming up with some class candidates, we can use this information to get a final set of needed classes. So we have 4 nouns, but we don't really need to have 4 different classes just because we spotted 4 nouns. We could refine these choices to get the right number of classes needed for this application. For instance, the task and the chores could both be wrapped up into one class, since they're pretty similar, called task. You could alternatively create task as a superclass, and then create a chore class to extend a task if you wanted. We could then possibly create an activity class for the activities that the family needs to attend, and have it extend to task as well. But that's optional, and I'm just brainstorming here. So after that, we then have you and your family. Well, we probably don't need 2 classes for this either. You and your family are all people, besides maybe your cat and dog, but we'll leave them out of this to keep it simple. So we could create a single class called person to handle modeling you and your family. So we were able to identify 2 and possibly 3 classes from a very simple application description, using just nouns to first come up with a list of possible candidate classes, and then refining those down to more concrete class decisions. Now, once we have our classes picked out, we need to think about the responsibility of each class. In other words, we need to define what each of these classes are supposed to do. We also need to think about any other classes the class may need to use, which are called collaborator classes. To help with identifying your class's behaviors and collaborators, you can use CRC cards, which stands for Class Responsibility Collaboration Card. To create a CRC card, you just use an index card, which describes the responsibility of a single class. You should then think about what each class should do, its responsibilities, and then write those down on the left side of the index card for that class. If any of those responsibilities require one of the other classes in order to work properly, you write the name of the collaborator class on the right side of the card. So here's a screenshot of some virtual CRC cards that I made on my computer using a program called Visual Paradigm. Now, ideally, you should create your CRC cards using real index cards, or if you don't have index cards, just cut up some paper into the shape of an index card. Now, this program allows me to add a lot more information about the class onto the card, but I just stuck with the basics here. So we have two cards. We have one for the task class and one for the person class. Let's take a look at the person card first. So you can see at the bottom of the person card are the responsibilities, and this one just has a single responsibility for creating a person. Now for the task card, it has 3 responsibilities. The first one is for creating a task, and then on the right, you can see that I've listed the person class as a collaborator, because when creating a task, we need to link that task to a person. Then below the first responsibility are 2 additional responsibilities for retrieving a task and completing a task. And that's really all there is to creating CRC cards. They're pretty helpful in being able to visually see your classes and define what the responsibilities are and which classes that they're going to collaborate with. So I hope you found these tips and methods helpful. Next up, we're going to take a look at the different terminology used for identifying and defining the relationships between your classes. But that's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next lesson.